Well, thank you and good afternoon. Rich and I are going to do a little bit of a tag team because it really describes the type of partnership that Emerson and IBM have entered into in the data center infrastructure management and also smarter infrastructure space. And it was great this morning to hear Andy talk about how the advanced technology future is in advanced DCIM, which is data center infrastructure management and ITSM coming together. We're going to say that the future is really now because we're going to talk about some of the things that we've been doing since we announced the partnership in February. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about first is really the data center in context and my view of what everybody is really suffering through. And my background, I was Emerson's Chief Information Officer before taking over Avascent 3 years ago upon the acquisition. So it's something that I've struggled with pretty much my entire career. I'm going to talk about what specifically we've done with Trellis and how we're solving the DCIM side of the equation. I'm going to hand it off to Rich, who's going to talk about IBM's approach to data center infrastructure management. We'll talk a little bit about the combination of data center infrastructure management and IT service management, and finally end with both what we're doing as partners and then a little bit of Q&A. So what is the problem? My entire career is really summed up on those two bullets: balancing availability over efficiency. And the dirty little secret as a CIO is efficiency gets you yelled at, availability gets you fired. So typically what have you done? You tend to over-provision. You're going to err on the side of being available at all costs, and you're going to deal with efficiency as it comes up. But the most important thing is these things are always in balance back and forth. As you are told you're out of power and you sneak something in to the data center, well, what you've done is you've increased efficiency, but you've eaten into some of your margins, so you've decreased availability. Same thing, if you sit there and triple up your redundancy, what have you done? You've preserved availability at a lower efficiency. DCIM, and really asset management in general, is about allowing you to increase your efficiency without compromising availability. Now, what is the problem? The problem is the data center itself. If you think about the data center as a three-layer cake, at the very top you have the application layer. The reason why the data center exists, providing services to the users inside of the business. It sits on top of a layer that we call the IT layer: servers, storage, networking gear. Those two are the domain of the IT guys, using processes like ITIL, tools like IT service management. Those two layers sit on top of the third layer, the physical layer. That's your space, power, cooling pieces. It's the part that Emerson was traditionally in with our ASCO and Liebert gear. Again, its own taxonomy, managed by facilities using tools like BMS systems and some of the different control pieces. The issue throughout the years is that red line that splits between them. The two communities operated happily apart forever. And you were able to do that because you had time. Time because before virtualization, most cases, when you're going to add an application, it came with a request to buy additional servers. That request, by the time you procured it, received it, racked it, provisioned it, plenty of time for the IT ops guys to talk to the facilities folks and ask questions like, well, where should it go? Where do we have the space? Where do we have the power? What do we need to do from cooling? Virtualization changed all of that. Now all of a sudden I can spin up a virtual machine and loads will move around. But keep in mind, even though you've virtualized the IT layer, it's still sitting on top of that static IT layer. If you haven't done a very good job of making sure you maintain margins, moving that virtual load can end up blowing a breaker. Now, a lot of the times I get asked the question, well, what happens with cloud? The answer is it makes it worse. The thing that's really driving this whole thing is complexity, the permutations and combinations that exist between the logical layer, the application pieces, and all the physical infrastructure underneath it. As you virtualize, your number of different contact points go up, becomes harder to manage. as you start going to the cloud, particularly when you start talking about a hybrid cloud environment where you may be dealing with multiple different clouds and loads moving around, the question that you get to is, how could human beings keep up with this? Now again, you can approach this by just adding a bunch of extra capacity in place. That is going to kill you from an efficiency standpoint. The time's come really for automation to help this problem. This is Emerson's approach to doing this. The idea that you need to have a closed-loop control system that exists between the physical infrastructure layer and the IT infrastructure layer. A combination of hardware and software that talks to everything inside of the data center, allows you to bring it up into a consistent view, be able to take action from the same platform, and then be able to complete the cycle. So we call that seeing what's going on, deciding what to do, and then taking action, all within the same console. As good as data center infrastructure management is, it can't do it alone. What you need is the context of how all of those applications relate to each other. You need to know the service level agreements associated with those pieces. You need all the types of things that an IT service management tool does. So very early on, we decided that we needed to work with leaders in the ITSM space in order to federate with their solutions to create a more, a grander total solution all the way across. When we looked around for a partner, we saw IBM. Now Rich is going to talk about how his side works, because I can't explain Christmas trees and forklifts.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to share the stage with Steve and to share the partnership with IBM. The obvious question here is, how does a Christmas tree and a skid mover relate to data center infrastructure management? And there's an interesting story behind both of those. Back in 2008, I was working on the IBM Green Data Center Initiative back in those early days of PUE and DCIE. And we spent a lot of time talking to customers and understanding their pain points and trying to identify patterns that we would use to inform our decisions about how to invest to best meet the needs of customer challenges. And some of these stories you just can't invent. We sat down with one customer, and they had been plagued by having all sorts of challenges and difficulties in managing the heating and cooling inside their data center. And they explained to us that one day somebody got the bright idea to actually lift up the perforated tiles in their data center. What they discovered was that somebody else had thought it was a great idea to store the Christmas tree, the artificial Christmas tree, after Christmas was over, underneath the floor in the data center. So the most obvious thing to do was to obviously remove that. The other story has to do with a different customer. In this case, it was a customer who was bringing on some new load into their data center to meet some new needs for the business. And they'd gone through a procurement cycle. They purchased a whole bunch of new servers. They arrived on the loading dock, and they had a pretty robust asset management practice in place, so they did all the right things in terms of logging the authorized assets, the new servers that had arrived, wheeled them down using a skid mover to the data center, and the conversation was along the lines of, "Bub, where do you want these?" And the answer was, "Geez, we really actually don't have a place for these servers inside our data center. No racks, no use, nothing." They took the skid, they wheeled the skid of servers right back to the loading dock to go figure out what to do about finding a place for them. So a couple examples of what we heard from customers about some of the most fundamental problems that they're faced with in terms of being able to do what we talk about today in the form of data center infrastructure management. Now, as an industry, we've obviously evolved quite a bit since then. Our own thinking at IBM has also changed and evolved over time. In fact, I would say a relatively short period of time. The Green Data Center Initiative is still alive and well. I would say that would be in the middle of this diagram that you see here on energy management, being able to do a good job, being efficient with your consumption of power, a corporate social citizen in the form of tracking greenhouse gases and carbon footprint and those sorts of things. But the picture has obviously expanded quite a bit since then. And at IBM, our thinking started to embrace these three corporate mandates, beginning with energy management, but also embracing IT service management, a piece of the business that IBM has been in for quite some time, quite obviously focused on the quality of IT service delivery, the quality and the reliability of IT service delivery, but going beyond that to include IT asset management and being able to do more with change and configuration management, systems management, network monitoring, and so on. And then also embracing this idea of facility management. We've got at IBM a variety of solutions that are very effective, do a great deal for our customers outside the data center. But also through those conversations we were having with customers, we came to realize that, as I think we all recognize today, the importance of combining those departmental functions between the facilities department, the facilities function, and the data center administrators and data center operators, and bringing them closer together and helping cross that cultural divide and doing it with some of the solutions from IBM. And so we've got these capabilities for facility management, and here it's being able to do operations around power and cooling, just making sure the chillers and HVAC systems are working together, facility maintenance, and so on. And the thread connecting this, as we see it now, is data center infrastructure management, tying together facility management, energy management, and IT business service management. Now, the exploded view diagram of the facilities view of this, the energy and facility management, looks somewhat like this. And these are the capabilities that we have, again, primarily focused on the needs outside the data center. The energy management piece here is the ability that we offer our customers to integrate with their BMS, their building management systems, to apply business rules, business logic, to detect circumstances and scenarios that are clearly malfunctioning, like, for example, simultaneous heating and cooling, a pretty common example of some of the challenges our customers have come across. And so we have the ability to help our customers do a better job of dealing with those sorts of circumstances. And I would say, while that is a real-time function, equally real-time is what you see in the middle around facilities maintenance. The ability to just be able to manage the assets themselves, the maintenance that goes along with keeping all the systems up and running inside the facility. Inventory management, supply chain management, all of those things. And then more strategically, a little bit less tactically, we have other components of what we offer in the area of facility management. And this is around the ability to do space management. Again, space management as a business process outside the data center. And what we recognized as we were embarking on this data center infrastructure management strategy at IBM was that a lot of those business processes that a facility user has to wrestle with outside the data center are very similar to and very analogous to the sort of space moves, adds, and change business processes that go on inside the data center. So a lot of commonalities between the way in which our customers want to be able to approach this problem. And then also as part of this picture, capital project management. Condition assessment is one element of this. So for example, being able to look at a chiller and ask the question, well, how many more operating hours do I have on this piece of equipment? And how am I going to be able to forecast my capital budget needs and anticipate my investment in my facility infrastructure? And then real estate management, I would say, would be one of the more strategic aspects of this, being able to anticipate facility requirements across a company. Large companies quite typically dealing with many large office campuses and buildings. So this is the exploded view of the facility and energy management picture. And then analogous to that, likewise, is the exploded view of the IT service management picture. This is under the umbrella of ITIL, and thinking in terms of incident and problem management, the classic service desk sort of scenario, but also including service catalog, change and configuration and release management based on a CMDB where you're capturing and retaining a lot of the information about your configuration items inside your infrastructure. And then along with that, what you see on the right side of this diagram is the event management requirements, tying together the ability to capture alarms and events coming from your IT assets, being able to correlate those, filter those, and use that to drive better service delivery of your IT applications. And then service management itself. This is the ability to associate a service in the form of, for example, HR applications being delivered to the HR department, and associating that back to the servers that are running those applications and residing, all the different elements of where those applications reside. So this is the picture of the IT service management view. And then when you take all that together and you combine it, those bookends, the building and facility infrastructure management side of this equation, the IT service management piece of this picture, And what was missing at IBM, and what we saw a clear need and derived from those very same customer conversations, was a requirement that we fill in a portfolio gap in the form of data center infrastructure management. And that's where this important partnership that we've developed with Emerson has come into play with the Trellis products. And so what we've embarked upon is a strategy that we've made some significant, important progress with already, and we're continuing to evolve and push forward with further co-development. And it's about building a comprehensive, cohesive system that ties together both data and business processes. So what we're working on is building a combined solution that works in real time. It works across the infrastructure, your enterprise infrastructure of what is inside the data center, the IT assets, the data center infrastructure assets, as well as your facility infrastructure. Doing it on a scalable platform that's modular. It's modular because customers have different pain points at different points in time, and their starting point may be different, and we want to be able to offer them a solution that meets their most immediate need, but also the opportunity to grow and expand their solution as their own needs expand and as they move up, in a sense, a maturity curve. And then at the same time, capturing a lot of the deep experience that Emerson has accumulated and invested in over time, the global reach, the extensive presence they have with a lot of the same customers, the same buyers that we talk to, and combining that with our own, at IBM, our own experience globally in IT service management, facility management, and our capabilities on that front, and bringing it together with a co-selling, co-marketing component to the partnership as well. And it's all about delivering ultimately a complementary value proposition, and at the end of the day, to a large degree, focused on improving the quality, reliability, and availability of IT services.
Thanks, Rich. So what are we really talking about when we combine ITSM and DCIM together? You think about a lot of the metrics that we use in the data center today. Dollars per square foot, kilowatts per rack. Those types of things are usually always either at the facility level or facility to the IT layer. If you think about why the data center really exists, it's those applications. What you really need to be able to be tracking is watts per workload. That is the work that's being done, the demand side of the equation. And unless you, first of all, have a DCIM solution that is application aware, you can't see the loads. If you don't understand how the loads interact with each other through the ITSM tool, you really don't understand what's going on. What IBM and Emerson are building together is the ability to be able to understand where your energy is going based upon the application of the business services that they support, make better decisions based upon that criteria. Now, the good news is you don't have to do this all at once. Really, if you're going to do data center infrastructure management and ITSM together, you have to do this in a stepwise fashion, a maturity model. It really starts off, first of all, with what we call reactive management. That's knowing what you have and seeing what it's doing. From there, you can move on to active management, taking action based upon what you see into the infrastructure. You then want to get into proactive management, taking action before you have an incident to be able to head off situations before they happen. And finally, you want to get to dynamic management. You want to automate the entire process so that your data center operates much like an ecosystem in nature, adjusting and balancing based upon the variety of loads that are putting on it. Now, dynamic management is a ways off, but the most important thing is every step on the path has got demonstrated ROI benefits, so you can take those steps as you're ready in the facilities that you're ready to do it on.
So this is the comprehensive, cohesive story that we're talking about. And what it ties together is data from the asset infrastructure that is used to drive this delivery of IT services. The data comes off of the IT assets, the servers, storage devices, and so on. It comes off of the data center infrastructure, the PDUs, the UPS devices. And thirdly, it comes from the facility infrastructure itself, the chillers, HVAC equipment, and so on. And then I would say it also comes in a variety of flavors in the sense that a lot of this very critical data is coming in real time. Minute-to-minute, real-time information giving you an insight to the status of all of that infrastructure. There's also more static or perhaps stationary information. So for example, you need to know nameplate data stored in an asset repository, warranty information. Is some of these assets we're talking about still under warranty, physical location, things of that sort. So we're collecting all that information across all those different asset types. And then we're likewise now making this available uniformly and universally throughout the enterprise. And this is where we're able to unite the different siloed business functions inside the enterprise, and facilitating the process of bringing together the facilities people with the IT data center operations people, so that they're not only working from the same view, the same single version of the truth, but they've also got a unified business process that connects all of the functions they need to perform and connects it seamlessly across the IBM and Trellis solutions. So we talked about IT asset management, business service management, event management, change, service catalog, and all those capabilities. And I would argue that analytics is an important overlay, and each of these pieces integrate very closely with the Trellis components of this overall solution. And lastly, I would summarize our points by saying that what we're focused on, again, is to be able to synchronize all of this process to provide a single source of consistent information, to be able to support end-to-end business processes across the enterprise, across all those various functions, and being able to integrate this alarm and event management across our systems to be able to achieve some very important critical outcomes for our customers. So business outcomes in the form of increased energy efficiency. The service quality and service delivery is immensely important. And then the understanding that agility and risk management are often counteropposing forces. So agility is something that's forced upon us on a daily basis, and do more faster with agility to meet the needs of the business. But how do you accomplish that at the same time as managing risk? And therein, in my view, lies one of the biggest challenges in everything that we're working on, most of what we're working on. So these sorts of operational efficiencies and so on are all part of the picture. And Steve and I are both pleased, along with the rest of the team, to have made some significant progress in combining the various solutions from IBM for IT service management, facility management, with the Trellis solution. We have it operating, available, showing to customers today in one of our important data centers in Southbury, Connecticut. We're working on rolling it out across data centers, replicating that across the world. And we're very pleased to be able to point to that sort of progress. We've got a roadmap ahead of us that talks about bringing in tighter integration to other IBM components for business service management, for alarm and event management. And we've got, I think, a very rich future ahead of us altogether.
So with that, thank you very much. We'll ask, we'll take a couple of different questions. Come see us in booth 402. You can see the integrations working now. It's been roughly 3 months since we appeared together at Pulse talking about what we wanted to do. As Rich said, we now have the solution up and operational in a few of the labs. We can demonstrate the initial implementations, much more to come for you right now. And we're happy to talk to you and take some of your questions. So with that. No? Everybody's pointing over there, so there must be one in the back.
Hi, it's Don Sands with i3 Solutions. Just a question on the IT part of your product. Is there any auto-discovery mechanism to discover your IT assets, or is it all manually input?
The answer is it's a combination of both. There is auto-discovery from as you connect the asset to the network, you can see the different types of assets. When it comes to the actual 3D location in space, that is something that you still have to enter manually, so which U location it is in the rack and the rest. We have worked with some integrated, we do integrated smart racks. We do have some technologies that can ease that through using technologies like RFID. But for a legacy data center, you still will have to enter the physical location manually of the device.
Shadi Makarichi, Engineering Design Group. You mentioned that we are ways off from dynamic management. Why is that, and what's the limitation?
The principal limitation that we run into at customer sites is the majority of customers we see are still grappling with getting all of their assets into one place, and then the relationships between those assets mapped out into a particular tool. The next thing that, from a technology standpoint inside of Trellis, we're just at the beginning stages of the analytics pieces, and you're going to want those analytics and those models to mature quite a bit before you would allow things to go into full auto. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't portions of the data center that you can have operating automatically today. So, for instance, with our thermal management controls, ICOM, there's a lot of things that you can set up in those devices today that will allow you to have automatic responses to things going on. But the total promise, the idea that as you move a virtual load, the entire data center across all of the different aspects dynamically shifts and moves, we're a ways off from having that technology done. Rich, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I think that's exactly right.
Anything else? If there are no more, please come and follow us. Please come and see us, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you.